You're on Ticker. Time for our next guest now, and Lelde Smits is a former foreign correspondent on Wall Street and has just been appointed of the Australian Shareholders Association. She's an award-winning entrepreneur and an advocate for women's financial empowerment. She joins me live now. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Alana. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Absolutely. Now, what an amazing accolade for you. You've just been appointed a director of the Australian Shareholders Association. Tell us a little bit about what they do for Australian investors and how they're helping the community.
Thank you so much. It has been an absolutely incredible honour for me. The Australian Shareholders Association has been operating now since 1960, empowering investors. They're Australia's largest independent not-for-profit individual investor association, and they've really been keeping the market fair for everyday investors now for more than 60 years. So I've been delighted to join them. Being a member-driven organisation, they're really empowered also by their volunteers, which means that we've really made up of an incredibly passionate bunch of investors that are here to educate and investors and also advocate for the rights of investors and keeping investment fair for the everyday investor in Australia.
Look, many people want to get into investing, and I think particularly over the last 12 months we've seen that with COVID-19 as well, people looking to really diversify, I guess, their portfolio. But people get a little bit overwhelmed sometimes. They don't know where to start. What's the Australian Shareholders Association's advice when it comes to that?
I think we could sum it up with one word, and that is education. Investment really, it's overwhelming, especially if you don't have a background in it. There's so much information to absorb. There's also, of course, an incredible risk when you're dealing with your own money. And the only way that you can really look to, I think, make a strong start, but also have a sustainable journey when it comes to your investment is to be very well educated. And as we know, education is very similar to fitness. It's not just a destination, it's something that you really need to work at every day. So a big component of what the Australian Shareholders Association does is provide this education and do it in a very independent way. So unlike many of our education providers that may have a product that they're selling, you can be guaranteed that the ASA is selling no products. They genuinely just want for all Australians to have the best possible education when it comes to their investments, so that they're really making wise investments that are going to be in their very best interest.
And what about when it comes to women in particular? What issues are actually impacting women looking to invest?
I think there are so many issues impacting women looking to invest, and I think really we only need to look at the ASX's investor study that they released last year that showed that there are a record amount of women that are now investing in the Australian Securities Exchange or the stock market here. However, when it comes to any time that you've got a group that's a new group that's investing, again, that educational theme really comes up. Women in the past have not been the ones that traditionally have access to the money, or even when it comes to parenthood, for example, women are often the ones that step away from the workforce, so may not be the ones that are actively controlling finances. And so when you combine the lack of information with now women entering the stock market at record levels, there's really a challenge there, which is catching up when it comes to education. So the ASA, recognising this challenge, has just launched wInvest, which is a completely free resource for all women to be able to access information, independent information, which has been put together by 2019's Australian Financial Planner of the Year. It's Felicity Cooper, and Felicity's put together this 16-part series that you can access online and gain independent education for a women's perspective, looking at a women's journey, how they can empower themselves to make wise investment decisions.
Well, that sounds like a fantastic tool. And I guess for new investors, what are some of the top traps, I guess, to be aware of? For example, Bitcoin, we're hearing a lot about this at the moment. You know, is that something that if you're trying to get into the stock market for the first time or you're trying to look at crypto, should you be a little bit wary of that? Should you start with something more simple? What are some of your advice there?
Yes, I think when it comes to top tips, you definitely want to ask where your information is coming from. So we all hear about Bitcoin now, and it's a conversation that people are having on social media or when they're hanging out with their mates or at dinner. You often hear about people talking about their latest investments, irrespective of what asset class it may be, property, stocks, Bitcoin, the whole thing. But it's really important that you ask yourself, where am I receiving my information from before I make an investment decision? Do I trust this person or do I trust this organization? Do they have a credible track record? And am I going to really make my decisions based on what they say? Now, ideally, what you're doing is collecting a lot of credible information and a lot of credible education, and really taking that and applying it to your own personal situation and your own financial situation. Ideally, you have a good understanding of what your own financial situation is, and you also have got a vision of where you want it to be so that you can put together an investment strategy that matches your objectives and very much sticks in with your risk tolerance, whether that is a high risk tolerance or perhaps a more conservative.
Well, look, I think this is all fantastic advice. If people want to reach out to you potentially or the association, how can they do that?
I think the best thing to do is visit the website, which is australianshareholders.com.au. And if you wanted that women's resource, which is completely free, that is australianshareholders.com.au/wInvest, or you can head to their YouTube page as well. And I do hope everyone continues to enjoy their investment journey and also continues to remember the importance of education.
Fantastic, Lelde. Thanks so much for joining us on the program. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Alana.